Oh, John Dong, shout out to you, my man. Yeah, that is not a coincidence. I haven't started yet, but you know what? Since there are people in here now, let's get this thing cracking right now. How are you guys, man? Shout outs to Afternoon. Shout outs to John Dong, which, by the way, I'm going to remind you once again, the man who predicted Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dawkins. Yes, that is the man right there. The man who predicted, and you know what? I'm going to say that he predicted it for the White House because I know that he did not know firsthand that that was the case, right? It wasn't the case that well, at first it wasn't the case, but it's Bo Nickel, right? You know, the all-American wrestler that is favored by Donald Trump. Let me tell you who else was favored by Donald Trump, which, by the way, sort of goes into the correlation of this entire story that we're going to talk about, right? As you know, the other title of this is Colby Covington retiring. Okay. Colby Covington has officially retired from MMA. And you know what? I'm here to tell you that, wow, let me tell you, man, he's not that bad, man. He's not that bad. By the way, man, we got 7 people in here. Hit the like button if you can, please, and we'll get this thing cracking. He says, "You was just thinking I haven't talked to you in a minute. Are you talking to me, or you mean the someone in the chat? When was the last time I went live? I went live about a day ago, right? It was so today is, oh, okay, 2 days ago. Wow. Okay, so there it is, man. That shows you that you have a profound effect on the internet if you are not on for 1 or 2 days, and now people are looking for you. He says wasn't here for that either. Oh, okay, okay, that's right. Okay, okay, so that's what you meant because you were not here for that. That kind of makes sense. Okay, so all right, all right, yeah. Then in that case, okay. Hello, Marty. How are you? I hope you're doing well. I hope everybody in Ohio is doing well. Speaking of Ohio, right? Something I was watching on Netflix that I thought was quite profound that had something to do with Ohio. George Washington, before he was an American revolutionary, he was a British officer serving under the British military while trying to fight the French and the Native Americans at the same time, right? Well, actually, the Native Americans were in close ties with the British. So I thought that was pretty important to kind of bring up. Obviously, Ohio has been, a real historical ground for what literally laid the foundation of America. So just thought I'd bring that up there. AR says, big ups Kyrie and chat. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam to you. How are you? I'm doing good, my man. He says, like and subscribe. Thanks. AR says, the shooting at the masjid, 17-year-old media don't talking about the masjid shooting. Well, that is why I'm here to do that. I'm sure there is an appetite for that, right? But for whatever reason, the news does not want to cover it. And I mean, you could sort of throw that into wide ranges of different conspiracies, right? One of those conspiracies is the fact that, well, them boys, okay, don't want you to care about Muslims, perhaps. Maybe that is the case, right? Or once again, that's just a conspiracy theory. I mean, the other conspiracy theory that's going around the whole entire mosque shooting is that it was staged. They're like, oh, well, this all looks strange, right? And then they were trying to implicate that the shooter was a trans kid or whatever. And then it came out that the San Diego mosque shooter actually had a manifesto, right? And we're going to talk more about that as time goes on into this live stream. But the other thing that I want to talk about, believe it or not, is Colby Covington, okay? And what I got to say about Colby Covington, believe it or not, has almost nothing to do with MMA. In fact, it's more about him as a character, as a person. And I'm here to say, you know what? Colby Covington is not that bad. He wasn't that bad. And why I'm saying that, I'm saying this out of hindsight. Take a look at all the Islamophobes, all the racist people out there, like Tommy Robinson. I'll get to your comment on that in a second. And you look at Colby Covington, he never really disrespected anyone's religion, right? He did say some pretty racially charged things towards Kamaru Usman, but it wasn't really that bad if you really think about it. What did he say to Kamaru Usman? He said to him right after he beat Robbie Lawler at a UFC Fox card, right? He said to him, I got a call from the president of the United States. Who did you get a call from? Your tribe in Africa? And then I thought about it, and Daniel Cormier mentioned it and said, wow, that's kind of racist. I'm like, well, towards who? Okay, you, Daniel Cormier, as a black man, how is that racist to you saying that the only people that were happy about Kamaru Usman's win, or the only people that care about his win, in comparison to Colby Covington having the president backing him up, was his tribe in Africa? Why would that be profoundly racist? And the truth is, it's not really that racist if you think about it, because that is what they have in Africa. Do we not have tribes in Africa? Do we not have people who live the tribal life in Africa, right? Conor McGregor. Okay, so let's get to the comments right now. Victory says, thought I had a fight lined up for July in West Virginia, but it fell through. Oh, man, I'm sorry to hear that, man. These things are very common in the regional scenes, right? They try to line up a fight. Sometimes the opponent doesn't show up, and for multitudes of reasons, right? Some of them are the obvious reasons, right? The obvious reason being that they are scared. They don't want to get in there. They don't want to ruin their record, or they don't want to ruin a losing streak that they have going on, or a winning streak that they got going on, or they just don't feel they were prepared or up to par with the task at hand, right? So there's a lot that goes into it, just like obviously high level MMA at the highest form of the UFC, ONE FC, Bellator, now MVP MMA with Jake Paul, which is crazy to say, but yeah. AR says, in a Reform UK party, Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson is racist and far right. They they are controlling the UK. Are they control? Okay, well, that kind of makes sense, right? Obviously, they are now leaning towards right wing politics, because let's be honest about this, right? The left wing Labour Party of England has failed the white working class of England, right? And I know that sounds like a very common, it's a very common narrative, a very common rhetoric to spew out. But is it true? And if you talk to enough Englishmen out there in the UK, and even the ones who moved out of the UK and lived abroad, whether it's in the US or whether they moved to Australia, they will tell you the same things, right? And then some of them will tell you that they moved out of that country as a protest of exile of some sort, right? But the reality is this, right? The reality is that whenever you have a dominant political force in a country, and if it doesn't work out, or if it just becomes a nuisance to enough people, what will happen is that they will change their party, or I'm sorry, change the leadership with a different party, right? An example of that, what's going on in America right now, we got November to think about, right? We have the elections in November, and there's a lot of projections from political experts in the American political landscape system that sort of says we are going to see a change in terms of having a Democrat takeover in the Senate and Congress, which right now is predominantly occupied by MAGA right-wing Republicans. In particular, Republicans, well, okay, Republicans right now are sort of in a dividing line right now, right? They're sort of divided. So as they're divided, the left is becoming a lot more cohesive, right? Not only that, they're gaining more allies in terms of the anti, you know what, them boys type of thing, right? They're sort of gaining traction with that crowd, right? The Nick Fuentes crowd, the Jake Shields crowd, people like that, right? Daniel Barry Sports Highlights says, sup, everyone. Happy Wednesday. You know what? I love that you remind us what day it is. Okay. I love that. I love that you remind us what day it is, because sometimes I tend to forget what day it is. I get so busy and wrapped up with whatever I do during the week that, yeah, I do forget what day it is. So thank you for letting us know. Right. And he says AR. But okay, so um, yeah, Colby Covington wasn't really that bad. And then here's another thing, right? Colby Covington had mentioned, you know what, man? I'm just playing a character. And this is literally what he has proclaimed as he has moved on from his career. He's hinted at that while he was fighting, but then when he is now formally retired, I think you're going to see the honest version, the most honest version of Colby Covington, right? And we've also kind of noticed this with Chael Sonnen as well. We knew that Chael Sonnen was playing a character, but we weren't really sure until at the end of his career, he had mentioned, you know what, man, I am playing a character. I'm trying to sell tickets. I've taken steroids. He admitted to a whole bunch of wide range of things, and great for Chael Sonnen to do exactly that. So, um, now, what about this San Diego mosque shooting? Right? What is going on with this? Okay, so obviously this took place. Mark Haney says, "I love steroids." Well, I tell you what, man. Wow, yeah, you really took my breath out of that one, man. You see, you just said I love steroids. Well, there it is, right? I mean, listen, as long as you're not competing in there, right? And if you do compete, obviously or you plan on competing, you have to cut that out because obviously there's going to be penalties involved in that. But yeah, I think that steroids are good if you are um, the normal civilian population that is not competing in combat sports. Obviously, that is a lot more better for you, right? But then again, there's always other underlining things that could go wrong in the long run of that, right? But yeah, steroids, not the worst thing in the world. I mean, look, I'll give you an example of steroids, right? Okay, so this right here is a steroid. Okay, uh, hydrocortisone cream. This is a steroid, okay? Now, what do I use this for? When I have eczema, right? That's kind of what happens when you have North African genes, right? You know what I mean? North African genes, sometimes sort of coincides with sub-Saharan genes, right? So you get you're susceptible to eczema. You're susceptible to being ashy, right? You often hear the black homies talk about how, oh, I'm ashy or this and that. That's kind of what it is, right? So I use it for that, right? If I got an itch going on or if I'm feeling some kind of way and I want to get a good workout in while I'm not like doing this while I'm working out, then I go put some on me. Yes, this has steroid derivatives in it, right? So I need people to understand that the meaning of steroids has multiple meanings behind it, and it also has different implications in it as well. Mark Haney says, look, insulin is the most anabolic hormone in the body, correct? More so than testosterone and HGH. Look it up, correct? Yes. Insulin cannot be tested, and it's legal to the public without any doctor's recommendation. Okay. Mark Haney also says most athletes are using insulin and nobody is talking about it. There you go, right? That is the loophole behind it. So that's why every time, man, this is why every time, anybody finds out that I've trained with TJ Dillashaw or Team Alpha Male or this and that, this is the common thing that I get trolled at about, right? He's like, oh, yeah, you got steroids from TJ or TJ. Come on, man. You know what? Every single one of your favorite fighters does something to enhance themselves in order to get an advantage. And that's just what it is. TJ just, I don't know, TJ decided to do it in a way where it was kind of blatant and open, and to the point where he got caught during the Henry Cejudo fight. But it is what it is. Mark Haney says steroids are different than anabolic steroids. Boom, there it is. There it is. That right there is an important factor to think about right there. Okay, so Mark Haney also says, bro, I don't care if an athlete uses steroids personally. You know what, man? Pride FC, right? Fun times, right? Obviously, you're old enough to have witnessed Pride FC back in the days. Fun times, bro. The type of fights that they had going on there. And in fact, the Japanese were so radical with it that on the contract, anybody that fought in those parts, it'll literally say, and by the way, we're not testing for steroids, almost sort of hinting at you as to say, go take all the steroids you want. We want fun fights. We want fights where it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a back and forth barn burner, similar to Don Fry and that Japanese gentleman, where they were just clinching each other up, dirty boxing style, right? One guy was clinching the other, and then they were both just throwing blows at each other on the opposite side, right? That's what steroids could do for you. Bob Sapp fighting a whole bunch of dudes that that should not be in there with Bob Sapp, right? That is a result of a league that is allowed to take steroids. Also, the fast recovery that you can make out of it so you can fight more and you can fill in these events. John Dong says, what do you think about when people say that guys like John Jones can't be the GOAT because he popped for roids? You know what? I think they say that out of spite towards John Jones and not necessarily out of a good faith argument in terms of making a combat sports analysis. That's what I think, right? I think that it is probably part of the fact that they are Daniel Cormier fans or fans of other fighters that John Jones has beaten. Also, Tom Aspinall supporters, obviously a guy that he hasn't fought before. You're going to see this a lot. You're going to see this a lot with many English and British MMA fans, especially the ones that are tied in with Tom Aspinall, right? They're going to say, well, you know what? John Jones was never the greatest because he popped for steroids, right? So it's an argument. Look, this is what I always say, right? I always say that if it's a homie of yours, okay, you're going to say that, you know what, my home, if, let's say you got an op and then you got a homie, right? You got an op and a homie right here. Your homie. The language is different than with an op. Let me give you an example. If it's a homie, it's something to the effect of, man, you know what? My man's struggling right now, but he will be on a come up. Okay. This is his struggling phase right now. He's going to come up. Okay. I know he's, not doing well right now financially, but he's on his way up. Now, if it's not a homie, if it's an enemigo, okay, somebody from the other side, somebody that you're beefing with an op, guess what language you're going to use? The language you're going to use is, that's a broke ass nigga. You know what I mean? He's a broke ass ninja. This, that, and the other, right? He a broke, he a bum, he's dusty, or whatever language or verbiage you would like to use to describe an enemy. That's the reality of it. John Dong says the argument never made sense to me because high school athletes have been caught taking roids. Why would professional MMA fighters not be on them? Let me try and understand it. So the argument never made sense to me, okay, because high school athletes have been caught taking roids, correct. Why would professional MMA fighters not be? Oh, okay. Why would they not be on them if high school athletes take it? Correct. Because obviously they are sort of like, you know what? Here's the thing, right? It's all arbitrary, okay? And let me explain what I mean. When the UFC was adamant in catching drug users, their whole entire mission statement was to make the sport palatable to the average fan. That was their goal. Their goal was to make the sport marketable. Their goal was to make the sport mainstream. Well, now that they are there, guess what happened? Guess what they did? They got rid of USADA. Not only did they get rid of USADA, they also replaced it with a company that they can control. Okay, so in other words, if Conor McGregor decides to take steroids for this Max Holloway fight, what is Dana White going to tell the drug testers? Hey, drug testers, do this. When you go to Conor McGregor's house and when you pick up his piss for the drug testing, I need you to go look the other way because it's going to be one of his family members that's going to piss on a cup that has been cleaned all throughout this time, or that will make sure that there's no steroids detected. That is what they are doing. So that's what I mean by arbitrary, right? Um, Mark Haney says you always hear pitchers and quarterbacks getting cortisol shots, which is a steroid for inflammation, not anabolic steroids, but it reduces inflammation equals better performance. See the contradiction? Right. So it's a whole lot of loopholes behind it. So whenever somebody uses the idea of, oh, you took steroids or this and that, look, fans really need to understand why these fighters are saying this. For example, when Michael Bisping got at Anderson Silva for taking steroids, right? He says they're not against it. Who's not against steroids specifically? Are you talking about the fans, or are you talking about the fighters themselves? He says they're only against the ones in the band during the 80s. They are only against the ones in the band during the 80s. Huh? What do you mean by that? Okay, most organizations. When you mean that they're only against the ones in the band during the 80s, are you talking about the Russians? Is that in reference towards the Russians when they got banned from the Olympics because of the rampant steroid use that they had going on? And by the way, I think there's some political angle behind that, obviously, right? Because obviously, Russia is not really popular in the world stage right now, at least not with Western nations, right? Certainly not with America, certainly not with Great Britain, definitely not with France, right? It's everybody in the Western world is against Russia. So you got to look at that and say, well, why is it that they are being banned from all these world level competitions, and specifically in the Olympics? Right? Oh, well, because you're winning a lot, right? They have a system that goes far beyond steroids. Look, steroids can only get you far in the highest level of fighting, or in the highest level of sporting competitions, whatever compository sports that may be in the Olympics, right? But skills will always pay the bills. That is one thing you really have to understand, right? Skills will always pay the bills when it comes to high level competition. Now, what can steroids do for you? Recovery, right? And that's basically what Mark Haney was just saying right now in the comment section when he says, reducing inflammation equals better performance. So, i.e., recovery, right? So, recovery is a very important thing. I think that a lot of guys out there are as skilled as each other, right? Or equally as skilled as each other, right? It only takes a little bit of those inches to sort of get you over the edge or give you a certain leverage. Mark Haney says organization only started testing and making steroids illegal during the 1970s and 80s when the government made steroids illegal. Okay. Mark Haney says now you can still take testosterone as long as you get a script. Okay. Even in events like the UFC. You know what? Here's something that wasn't talked about during the days of Frankie Edgar when he was champion, right? He took TRT when he was as a champion. And I'm surprised that a lot of people just kind of overpass this. They don't really look at it or think about it. But I did remember him admitting that, hey, you know what? I take these things because it is allowed, right? And yeah, so testosterone replacement therapy was allowed. That's the same era that Vitor Belfort took his as well. And as a result of that, this is what you got, right? And then when you had USADA, then they had to kind of switch up everything and, yeah, basically go back to not taking anything at all. Mark Haney says, effing Rampage said he wasn't on steroids. Then Bradley Martin had to tell him the testosterone he is admitting to taking his entire career is in fact steroids. Okay, yes. I mean, he fought in Japan, right? So Bradley Martin had the right to press on him for that because, obviously we all knew what was going on in Japan, and the Japanese loved Rampage, and they wanted to see him win, right? So he was good for business. He was the Conor McGregor of Pride FC during the time. So for sure, they wanted him to take a little something. Toothbud says, did they get rid of that in the UFC? I thought TRT got banned after Vitor. Yes, it's exactly what I mean. That's why I had mentioned that during those days, Frankie Edgar partook in that, and this is what you got. Mark Haney says, Rampage came out later and said that he was TRT approved by the UFC. There you go, right? So what are we even talking about, right? Like we're talking about just arbitrary language, right? Like think about that. That's arbitrary language. Oh, well, it was approved by the UFC because it's TRT that's approved by the UFC, right? But God forbid you take this because you have eczema, okay, and you get caught with this in your system, you'll get popped. This could get you popped right here. You know what a lot of people don't know? He says, bring steroids back. He says, nobody cares. Correct. Correct. Nobody cares. I think, and you know what, Mark? I think that is why the UFC went back to where they're at right now. They got rid of USADA. Obviously they still brought in Jeff Nowitzki, but Jeff Nowitzki is, he's a compliant employee. Okay, the best way to really put it, right? He is a compliant employee. They no longer need them because they already proved that they are now a mainstream sports, and that's what it is. Toothbud says, but that's not allowed anymore. Jeff is a company man. Correct, correct. And that also goes with the Conor McGregor excuses, the John Jones excuses, and things of that nature. So all those things are a reality to that effect. So all right, let's find out about the San Diego shooting right now, right? Okay, let's find out about the shooting in San Diego because there's a lot of moving pieces into this, right? Obviously, there was a manifesto that had came out, and okay, so I think we're living in a very anti-Islamic era right now. Okay, that's kind of what I'm going to name this part of the segment right now, right? San Diego shooting at the mosque, and we are now living in an anti-Islamic era, right? So this is what happened on Monday, May 18, 2026. A deadly mass shooting occurred during the prayers. I think it was a prayer that was going on, right? In the Islamic Center of San Diego in the Claremont neighborhood. So anybody that knows San Diego, it is within the Claremont neighborhood. So if you know where that is, then you know what I'm talking about, right? So shout out to everybody in San Diego, right? This was resulting in a death of 3 victims, okay? 3 victims that were seriously hurt. There was 2 teenage gunmen that was involved, okay? Local and federal authorities are investigating the attack as a white nationalist hate crime, right? They call that a white nationalist hate crime, but yet not a terrorist attack. Toothbud says, I live literally 15 minutes away from that shooting. Oh, wow, man. Okay. So that's right. Okay. You're a San Diego resident. Okay. Yeah, man. If you care to share any information on some of the ground level situations that is going on right now, I would, yeah, that would be highly appreciated if you can. Okay. So the timeline of what had happened, right? This happened in the morning time. So the warning, 9:42 a.m. The mother of one of the suspects called the San Diego Police Department to report that her son was suicidal, dressed in camouflage, and had ran away, by the way, in her car with multiple household firearms. Okay, so that was a concern right there. He took the car of his mom and then all the firearms that were in the house. Law enforcement utilized the license plate readers to search for the vehicle. And then the attack happened literally 2 hours later, right? 11:43 a.m., 2 heavily armed teenager suspects arrived at the mosque, immediately engaged in gunfire outside, and briefly forced entry into the building, coming within 15 feet of the active school classrooms. Okay, so there was school going on because obviously it was Monday. And in the aftermath, in the afternoon, after fleeing the mosque parking lot, the suspects fired at a nearby landscaper. By the way, he was not injured. Minutes later, officers discovered both suspects dead inside their vehicle a few blocks away from the mosque. Okay? So the victims, obviously, they have some names, right? Toothbud says there's definitely an ominous feeling of cops around too. Just crazy that racism equals slash hate brainwashes people into doing something like this. I mean, look, there's a lot of people out there that are heavily responsible for this, right? Obviously, there's a lot of people out there that are radicalizing people to uh, go at Muslims. But I'm going to be honest with you, man. It doesn't mean that it doesn't go the other way as well, right? Let's be honest. There's a lot of people in our Muslim community that also perpetuate violence towards the Jays, towards other groups, right? This is just what it is. So let's not. But I get what you're saying, right? It's very horrific, very horrific. But the victims, okay, so the heroes, okay, they're considered heroes at this point, right? Especially Amin Abdullah. He says, definitely this stuff goes away. Everyone has dirt on their hands. I agree. I agree to that, right? And I'm saying this as a Muslim, but I'm also saying this as a responsible journalist to try and give you guys the best potential objective point of view that I can present to you. All right. So the three heroes, okay, of the local Muslim community that were killed while actively distracting the gunmen and securing the facility, okay, which by the way prevented the shooters from reaching nearly 140 children inside the mosque, known as the Al Rashid Mosque. Ali Khan says, "Man, praying for the victims of the mosque." Man, I am too as well, right? And this is the reason why I had to do this, because you know what? I was like, I could come in here, talk about MMA, talk about, just exclusively Colby Covington retiring. We could talk about the Song Yadong fight and this and that. But I figured, you know what? There's not a lot of people out there that's talking about this. I figured, why not do it? He says, he says, amen, brother. Ali Khan says, did you hear that 15 feet they were right there next to the kids? Yes, I was just getting to that, right? So, all right, nearly reaching about 140 kids inside the mosque, right? So the people that died, 51-year-old Amin Abdullah. You usually probably seen a picture of him, big black brother with tactical gear on. He was obviously the head security of the mosque, right? The mosque dedicated security guards was a dedicated security guard for over a decade, right? He exchanged gunfire with the attackers at the entrance, drew their attention, and successfully used his radio to trigger the center's active shooter lockdown protocol before he was fatally shot. The other victim was a 78-year-old, Mansour Kazia, 78 years old, okay, a longtime cook, handyman, and he was also a shopkeeper at the mosque. Okay, he was the very first person to dial 911 during the attack. He and Awad were cornered and unfortunately unalived in the parking lot while drawing the shooters away from the building. And then the other person was Nadir Awad, 57 years old, a devout community member who lived across the street. Right? Usually, you see a lot of guys that live near the mosque. They usually are the ones that volunteer at the mosque. I remember when I was living in the Arden area of Sacramento. There was a mosque there right by the 24-hour fitness on Fulton. So for those of you that know where that is, you know what I'm talking about. All my Sacramento heads, right? Ali Khan says, did they not even think to put their lives out there to save the kids? Who in particular are okay? They did not even think to put their lives out there to say yes, yes, yes. Because for one, Amin Abdullah, he's yeah, it is absolutely disgusting, man. And considering the fact that there were children involved, and yeah, I mean, well, potentially children involved, but unfortunately, the ones that died were the ones that are older, right? They lived a very fulfilling life for however long it was, whether it was 51 years or 78 years for the older gentleman in Mansour. But all right, so Nadir Awad, a devout community member, okay, lived across the street, hearing the gunfire, knowing his wife was inside teaching at the school. So his wife was a teacher at the school. All right, he ran towards the danger to help divert arriving worshipers and assist Kazia. Okay, so now let's get to the suspects and the motive, right? Because there's a manifesto that came out of this, right? The suspect's motive identifies as by the at San Diego Police Department, FBI San Diego Field Office identified the shooters as Caleb Liam Vasquez, 18 years old, and Kane Lee Clark, both local residents. Now, the radicalization behind that, the FBI confirmed that the teenagers met online where they radicalized one another through extremist digital spaces. Prior to the attack, they uploaded a shared live stream video of the shooting and left behind a 75-page manifesto. So there was a manifesto with this, right? Ali Khan says, my only thing was that the mayor, he has anti-Islamic rhetoric. So Ali Khan, that's true, right? Here's the thing, right? I know a lot of people that have anti-Islamic rhetoric, but I would know how to deal with them. We'll have a debate. Okay, I don't got to get into no gangster shit with these dudes. I don't got to go and run up on these dudes, get a bunch of homies to go mask up and run up on them. I don't got to do that because they're not combative in that kind of way. And then if I was to get combative with them in any kind of way, they would call the police on me anyway. So how am I going to win that situation? So better I exercise my debating skills, my intellectuality, and my knowledge of Islam and also other religions to debate whatever subject they have going on. Right? That's what I would do with the mayor. The mayor, he's not a dangerous man. He doesn't. Well, I mean, I don't know much about the mayor, but obviously he's not one of these people that's telling people to go and shoot Muslims out there, right? I mean, if he did, then all right, maybe maybe there's something to that. But um, what I'm trying to say is that there's a difference between combative individuals that you can deal with in a very extreme way, and then there are those that you can actually debate and have a reasonable conversation with, right? The mayor, I can have a reasonable debate with about Islam. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's have a debate, right? And I'll school you on it. But with other people, it's a little bit different. You know what I mean? And if it's different in a very extreme way, trust me, I would not be on this internet talking about it. By the way, shout out to Aunt Hefe from No Jumper recently catching a murder charge. Right, they're really cleaning up LA right now for the World Cup and also for the Olympics that's coming in 2028. But that's a side story for another time. Ali Khan says, but I heard the police chief talk good about the security guard. Yes, yes. The police chief said the guard was a hero. I did hear the police chief say that. Yes, yes. W to the police chief. Okay. So, okay, the ideology behind all of this, right? According to the Anti Defamation League and law enforcement analysis, their writings are deeply rooted in white supremacy, great replacement conspiracy theories, neo Nazis, iconographically, and also talk about in the internet as what they would call like incel culture, right? I don't know if I would necessarily, sort of buy that, right? It's sort of this thing that left wing people use whenever they don't agree with someone. But, anyways, the manifesto explicitly targeted Muslims, Jewish people, Black people, and Elton John's community, okay? Citing inspiration from the 2019 Christchurch mosque shooting. So obviously, there was a shooting at a mosque in New Zealand back in 2019, and this is where they drew the inspiration from. All right. So the weapon seizures that came out of this, right? Following the attack, federal agents executed a search warrant at the residence tied to the suspects and seized over, get this, 30 firearms and crossbows. Now, that's not that unusual in America, right? It's not unusual to own a lot of guns in America. Ask the homie on the chat, Mark Haney. He knows a thing or two about that, right? With his public knowledge with his known public knowledge of his beef that he had with Kamala Harris, when Kamala Harris tried to lock him up for owning way too many guns, right? I mean, it's America, for crying out loud, right? This is what we do. We own guns out here for multitudes of reasons, and now you see why. All right. So now the current status of this, the mosque safely evacuated all the children, right? That's good. And the staff, following a massive multi-agency tactical sweep on Tuesday of May 19th, a massive interfaith community vigil was held for the victims, and a community fundraiser has raised nearly 3 million to support the victims. Right? How about that? Right? Chud the builder. You know what I mean? But not to compare or anything, but yeah. Um, he says Kamala, yeah, the woman that tried to make your life a living hell, the woman that made you love Trump. You know what I mean? Like, the what? Yeah, I mean, yeah, she was horrible, bro. But she locked up a lot of brothers, bro. Not just obviously, not just you, not just Norteños, not just Soreños, not just Bloods, Crips. Man, she went after everybody during her time in California. May Allah burn her in hell. But anyways, increased law enforcement patrol had been ordered around the house of worship across Southern California. He says, I don't love Trump, didn't vote for him. Okay, well, fair enough. But I'm sure in comparison to, I mean, look, I'm not a fan of Trump either, right? But I'm just saying, I'm sure that between Kamala and Trump, I think it would be Kamala that would try to lock you up more than Trump will. Or I don't know. I mean, that would be all circumstantial, depending on what is what is going on in that in that political sphere of things, right? Or in Donald Trump's case, whatever he's feeling that day. Like, he doesn't really have a solid type of um, ideology or decision making process behind his actions, but more so about just what he's feeling in that moment. Oh, okay, you know what? I'm losing the black community support. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go free 21 Savage. I'm going to go bring him back from the UK and bring him out here. Kodak Black. I'm going to pardon him, right? That type of thing. Mark Haney says, I didn't vote at all. My conscience wouldn't let me do it. I feel the same way. Look, because I'm like, who am I supposed to vote for, right? Like, none of these people are good for anything. You know what I mean? Like, we only get two choices, but that's sort of the unfortunate thing with America, unfortunately. So, yeah, that's the reality of it. Mark Haney says, I had every reason to vote against Kamala, but regardless of my beef with her, my morals and beliefs wouldn't allow my conscience to say yes to it. Man, W for Mark Haney on that, right? Because the common argument that a lot of people have is, well, if you are not going to vote for Trump, then maybe you're a Kamala Harris supporter. No, maybe how about not support any of them, right? And I think that's very logical to that degree. So, yeah, W for you on that one. Yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe you might have voted for Trump, but thank you for clarifying that for me, right? Because obviously, it would seem like the natural course of action, at least if you're well, you know what? I should have known. You're not a normie. You know what I mean? Like, normies would do that. Oh, Kamala Harris tried to lock me up. I'm voting for the other guy, right? That's sort of the straw man argument that many people would make, right? Especially if they were directly affected by this person like you were. But, W for you on that one. He says, look, I wouldn't go fight a war for Trump's principles, and I wouldn't send my sons to war with that president. So therefore, I'm not casting a vote. Fair enough. Fair enough on that one. So obviously, these guys came out with the manifesto, right? What exactly was in the manifesto? Because I sort of briefly gave you guys some examples of what was in the manifesto, right? So let's take a look at what New York Times had to say about this, or the California Post, rather. Okay. Written by Joe Marino. Shocking manifesto reveals teen shooters' vile motivations behind San Diego Mosque shooting. The teenage San Diego Mosque gunman appeared to have left behind a shocking hate-filled manifesto which praised Hitler, a slew of mass murders before the attack. The California Post has learned this. Okay, this is from the California Post, not New York Times, but I believe they are from the same company. Obviously, California Post is more for relevant towards California. So the teenage San Diego Mosque gunman appeared to have left behind a shocking manifest. Okay, so the authorities are investigating whether 17-year-old Kane Clark, 18 years old Caleb Vasquez wrote the nihilistic missive before killing 3 people and then each other, according to law enforcement sources. The document expresses a desire to spark a race war and about the end of civilization. So they are called the New Crusade. This is their little gang symbol right here. Let me show you guys this. So this is, yeah, that's kind of what they had going on. Obviously, there's a cross right there that sort of references Nazi Germany. One right there that kind of references, I think, the cross of the KKK. But yeah, that's them in a nutshell, right? Let's hear what what they had to say about this. The okay, so there's the police chief right there. All right, let's see here.
That we have been following over the last 24 hours or so, and that is the deadly shooting at a mosque over in San Diego. Take a look at this aerial footage coming in from our affiliate over there. Now, before the gunfire, police say they were working to locate 2 teenagers who would ultimately carry out that attack, killing 3 people and then taking their own lives. That search started after the police chief says the mother of one of the teens reported that he was suicidal, had run away, weapons were missing from the home, and her car was gone. 2 hours after that, gunshots were fired at the Islamic Center of San Diego, just blocks away from the home. The suspected shooters, ages 17 and 18, were found in a car, police say, after taking their own lives near the shooting scene. And today, police say they plan to execute search warrants related to that investigation as they work to piece together exactly what happened and how this played out. Those investigators saying the suspects engaged in, quote, generalized hate rhetoric, and the shooting is considered a hate crime. A lot to this here. Want to bring in a friend of the show. We have Jillian Snyder, retired NYPD officer, resident senior fellow at R Street Institute, and adjunct lecturer at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. As always, Jillian, thank you.
By the way, guys, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's get this thing cracking.
More information about the tragic situation there.
Good morning, Josh.
Good morning. Well, first off, I want to kind of start from where things stand right now. What has kind of stood out to you overall from your investigative background as we've learned bits and pieces of the information about exactly how this happened?
The Memorial Day sale is happening now at RC Willey. Shop incredible store-wide savings today. Looking to upgrade your kitchen or find... Well, we do...
All right, well, shout out to RC Willey.
This is a quite fresh investigation on the last press conference, I believe, last evening. So law enforcement was very smart in just giving what they could because they want to make sure to corroborate all evidence. One of the things that stood out to me most, though, was the fact that this was a pair of individuals. That's quite rare in attacks like this, where we typically would see a lone wolf actor or one assailant. Again, the age also is something that struck me as rather anomalous because we don't see shooters this young. That's typically 1 in 4. I think it's about 25% of mass shooters or active shooters are in this age category.
What about where things kind of go from here? When you take a look at the situation playing out, the investigation, we know that police, investigators, detectives, they have said essentially that they're going to serve these search warrants from here as they work to kind of gather more details, but they also say it is being investigated as a hate crime. So they, of course, have a lot of information, but are looking for more.
We know so far a lot of media outlets have reported that there was some kind of written manifesto or note to the mom, which included some hate and rhetoric language. We're also hearing that there was hate language or hate speech on one of the firearms. So that is why San Diego Police Chief did make mention that this is, a hate crime, but he did say a generalizable hate crime because, again, they don't have anything specific or to corroborate that. With the warrants, what they're really going to do is, besides, of course, search the property, search the homes of the two offenders, they're also going to look into all of their technology, their computers, their laptops, their cell phones, their tablets, seeing who they communicated with online, how these two came to be a pair, because that's important too. We know one was 17, one was 18. What is their prior relationship? How close of friends were they? Did they talk about this online to other people who may have known? Are they part of a network of other people who are, considering crimes like this? So there's a lot to be determined, and that's what these warrants are for.
And I did want to ask you about the significance here. We're talking about an attack that happened at a mosque, and I have to imagine that attacks like this are fairly rare.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, again, when something like this happens, even one is one too many. It's a tragedy. Lives were lost. There were kids on the scene. Luckily, none of the children were injured, but of course, petrified. The families of those children are probably horrifically scared. But church should.
Mark Haney says dual shooters is kind of crazy, though. It is, right? Because if you think about it, right, it's not like these dudes were homies that went to high school together, right? Even though I believe they are both San Diego residents, from my understanding, but they never met each other prior to that. They were just online buddies, right? So that's kind of how all of this happened, right? Very similar to ISIS fighters, right? Back in the days, in like 10 years ago, there was a mass migration of Muslims in the Western world, whether they were from Muslims of California or Muslims in Great Britain or France, right? Traveling to Syria to join the Islamic State. Right now, how is it that they were able to do this? Not necessarily through their local Muslim community, right? Because most Muslims, are probably reasonable-minded people that are not trying to harm anybody or join terrorist organizations. So as a result of that, what do? They go and seek these people out online. The one thing that the internet has brought us, right? It has brought us closer to many people that think like us. All right. Now, let me explain to you what the world was like before the internet came, right? I traveled a lot before the internet ever came, right? I grew up in New Jersey before I lived in California. And when I went to California and I went to other states, I was like, oh man, you know what? I was so shocked, young minded of mine. I was like, man, everybody does the same thing that we do in my hood. You know what I mean? Everybody goes and, puts $10 together to get a dime bag of weed. They get together, hang out, they do this and that. I was like, oh, wow, they do the same things we do. Oh, wow, they listen to the same music we do, right? That's the positive thing about it, right? You find out that there are like minded people like yourselves out there, kind of like with this chat, right? We got a lot of like minded people in this chat, right? Guys that have either military experience, street gang experience, fighting experience through the world of MMA, or they have family members that do it themselves, or they have sons or kids that do it themselves. So there's this community of like-minded individuals, or individuals that sort of share the same type of lifestyle, or share the type of the same ethos, right? That's the word I'm looking for, ethos, right? So the other negative side of that, with the advancements of the internet world, is that it brings a lot of crazy and radical people together, and this is one example of that. Mark Haney says, explain to me how all these active shooters have the wackiest art. LOL. Their emblem you showed was, I mean, they definitely didn't make that themselves, right? Obviously, it was a cross from what a lot of white supremacist groups use, right? If you notice the circle thing, I'm sure you've probably been locked up with a couple of Peckerwoods, in prison before. You've probably seen a few of them with the tattoos like that. And then they just added a whole bunch of other things to it, or whatever. So he's F the Woods. And you know what, though? I don't know why, bro, but the other side of your the opposition of what you represent, those guys are really into the woods. You know what I mean? Like they are, yeah, bro. You know what I mean? Like they're really like like that. Like they're really close with each other in at least in prison. Maybe I don't know. Also in the streets, apparently, right? Okay, now I can kind of say this because it's public information. When they raided the white supremacist group in LA, when they raided them, they found out that they were working with the Mexican mafia. So this is public record, right? He says, "Yeah, I got some homies that are Peckerwoods, and them boys go hard." LOL. Yeah, and they also go hard for the guys that are opposite of you, right? You know, the opposite of the color red. You know what I mean? Like they, yeah, they go hard for them too. Like I mean, like as a lionship, right? And this is often what a lot of black gangs and other minority gangs from the Blood and Crip side often complain about them, right? Oh, you know, they run with them, you know, and they often sort of attribute their racism from their you know their cross-reference ideologies together. So yeah, there it is, man. Little bit of some interesting facts for those of you that don't know. For those of you that don't know, outside of California, this is going to come as a shock to you, but many white supremacist gangs affiliate themselves with Southern Mexican gangs. Now, not all. Obviously, there's some sets and different, you know, Sureños and different Sword 13 Southern Mexicans that are not down with guys like that. But when they are in prison, for sure, they fall in line because their older homies are down with the woods. And yeah, so a little bit of some gangland lesson for you guys there.
Shootings, house of worship attacks, those are statistically rare. When they do happen, they're horrible. But I want to just make mention that we have to prevent them before they happen. And this is where the leakage comes in. What that kid did by, acting out, leaving a note for his mother to find, that was pre-event leakage, which is very common in offenders who exhibit this type of action. So we just need to be diligent and vigilant to make sure to call appropriate resources or call law enforcement when we suspect anything like this could occur.
How difficult is it when you have, for instance, the mother calling police and saying, look, my teenager is missing, my vehicle's gone, weapons are gone, he's suicidal. How does that kind of factor in? Because as always, we say help from loved ones.
Oh, and by the way, okay, so Mark Haney says once the white boys hit the yard, they are all absorbed by the brand. Okay, and the brand and the brand don't play. Oh, okay, okay. I know what you mean by that. I know what you mean by that. Yeah, yeah. Once the white boys hit the yard, they are absorbed by the brand, and the brand don't play. Okay, so I think that's interesting to bring up, right? Because oftentimes, you know, most Peckerwoods, or sometimes, believe it or not, even guys that you see with the, you know what, the symbol of the German painter in the 1930s, right? They're not, you know what, like it's crazy to say, but they're not all racist, right? They were brought in there because they needed a role with somebody. And this is what I try to explain to people about California, right? Like here, if you are not in a gang, especially if you're at a city like Stockton, right? And you know that's yeah, I don't want to overspeak, but because I was gonna let out some things there, but yes, there are places where you definitely need to be in a gang in certain cities, but certainly in the prison systems of California, you definitely need to be down with somebody in order for you to survive, right? And if you live in Stockton, yeah, you definitely needed to be down with somebody because everybody was down with somebody in Stockton, right? Didn't matter who you were. If you weren't down with anybody, then you were probably a weirdo or you were probably a cop. And I didn't want to say too much, but let me just say there's enough Denzel Washingtons out there in the training day type of tip. But
ones can help prevent something like this. Obviously, unfortunately, that was not the case, but we know police say they were looking into it maybe about 2 hours before the attack.
Unlike our current congressman,
Absolutely, the
I'll never
mother's
take a
call
dollar
is
from a
critical,
lobbyist.
and I think that it may have actually prevented further harm.
Unfortunately, that was not the case,
It
but
was able
we
to
know police say they
alert
were
law
looking into it
enforcement that
maybe about
something
2
could
hours.
happen, something bad could happen. And I know that the chief of San Diego did say that they started initiating using their technology, particularly license plate readers, so they were able to track that vehicle.
So the mom first suspected that the son was suicidal, right? Didn't really have any indication that he was going to go commit some sort of like Columbine or some sort of mass shooting or some sort of anything like that, right? Had no idea that any of this was going on. And yeah, so
vehicle. Unfortunately, the offenders did get to the location before law enforcement was able to prevent it from happening. But I think the quick response and early intervention, which was prompted by that mother's call, it did most definitely, in my opinion, save some lives.
Also want to talk about some of the news conferences that have been held. You and I have discussed this in the past about various different crimes that have taken place. Sometimes you have police.
All right, so obviously it was the mother who called the police to inform them of this, right? And the lady on this Fox News clip right here is saying that if it wasn't for the mother's call, that more would have happened, right? Mark Haney says, watch both these kids be on antidepressants, Ritalin, Adderall, or something like that. Oh, yeah, more is going to come out of this, right? Obviously, right now, they have a manifesto. There's 75 pages into it, right? I doubt we're going to see all of it unless, of course, we request it to a certain degree, right? Request some sort of, like, paperwork or, some sort of, something like that, right? Freedom of Information Act or something to that extent. We're going to know the extent of that. He said they had a manifesto. Yes, and it's 75 pages long. 75 pages long. This is what I wanted to say about the mother that snitched, right? And I know that sounds like a very derogatory word to say, because obviously if you come from a certain type of world, that's what it is. It's snitching. How old were these kids? One was 17 and one was 18, right? And then one of them obviously had a Latino background, but has a white supremacist leaning, right? Which kind of tells you there's a little bit of that, Peckerwood, Mexican, mafia connection thing. And not that they're affiliated with that, but I'm saying that these ideologies kind of cross paths with each other. Nick Fuentes, right? The most famous white supremacist in the world right now is Nick Fuentes. And Nick Fuentes has, yes, it's a Spanish name, but he's not, a full Spaniard in any kind of way. He's half Mexican. His mother, I believe, wait, was his mother Mexican? Or no, his mother was white and then the father was Mexican. So there you go, right? And he's the biggest white supremacist in the world, right? And here's the thing, I happen to find him freaking entertaining. Okay, I happen to find him pretty entertaining. Okay, now going back to the mother, right? This is not something I would do. Okay, now obviously I would never call the cops for anything. I have my reasons. For those of you that live and understand that part of the world, you understand why. I don't need to go into it, right? But it's just not something that I would do. At the same time, people who understand that life also know that there are differences between gangsters and civilians, right? Civilians, they call the cops. I mean, for crying out loud, right? That's not something that is, necessarily looked down upon in gang culture, especially if you're a civilian. That's why you see all these gang members in No Jumper hang out with Adam 22 when Adam 22 literally vehemently said that if I see a crime, I'm going to talk. And he was adamant about that. The thing is that this mom prevented more tragedies from happening. You see what I'm saying? She prevented more tragedies from happening. But then again, she's a civilian. If I found out something like that, obviously, I don't even want to talk about what I would do in that situation. You know what I mean? Let's just leave that out for the internet. But if you know, right? Real men go out and do real things, and real men go out and handle their own candle by their own by their own will and fortitude, just like Amin Abdallah did, right? He got into a shootout with those two guys, and that's exactly that's an example of handling your candle. But also there's a controversy amongst the people of that life that say that if you're a security guard, you're not really from that world if you're a security guard, right? But then, I know a lot of gang members that work security on the side, you know what I mean, that work security at the clubs or this and that, but they wouldn't necessarily call the cops, right? If they had a belligerent patron that was in their place of business that they work at, they would just handle it on their own. They would beat them up, throw them out. Uncle Phil, DJ Jazzy Jeff style. Remember in Fresh Prince when he got thrown out? Like, you always see DJ Jazzy Jeff getting thrown out like that. By the way, they use the same footage over and over again. That's why he was wearing the same clothes. But anyways, not to digress. Mark Haney says 17 and 18 writing a manifesto like it's a Polly Pocket notebook. Can't wait to read the stupidity of this over-glorified diary. LOL. DJ Jazzy Jeff. Yeah, man, that's what bouncers would do. They would just throw them out like that, right? But shout outs to the mom. Obviously, you guys know that's not something I would ever do, right? Real G's that get down with whatever they get down with. That's not something they would do. But at the same time, man, I have to be an objective journalist and tell you guys that the mom saved a lot of the kids' lives there. Although unfortunate for the three people that were killed in this in this tragedy. I think that's probably the reason why this is not getting enough traction, is because it was only 3 people as opposed to, let's say, if it was 20 or, the 2019 shooting in the church, what is that town? Church something. It's not a church, but it was a mosque at a town in New Zealand with the town that was named after a church. But anyways, so that was like 20 people, and you could literally see it like them getting gunned down after another. I mean, it's insane, man. You know what I mean? But yeah. Man, wow.
Out, and they don't reveal a lot quickly. You have to wait maybe a few days to get more details. This one, we got a lot of details during those first news conferences on the day of. What do you make of the revealing of that information by the police chief, by other investigators on day one of the incident, just hours after it took place?
Okay, so I think the reason why, before I let this lady speak, right, the lady that's speaking is Jillian Snyder. She's a retired NYPD officer, okay? My theory on why they released the information as quickly as possible, I think there was political pressure. I think there was also a lot of lobbying going on involved. CARE, if you guys know anything about CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, right? They are a left-wing Muslim group. Right, even though they're a left-wing Muslim group, they also advocate for, all types of people. Right, obviously they're left-wing, so they're gonna accommodate for the LBGT, all the other minorities that are not Muslim. Right, so they kind of have a little bit of that leaning. But I think there was a lot of political pressure for them to release these information as quickly as they can.
Because, again, the mother was the one who called, so now you have a verifiable and credible witness. So it's not like an anonymous tip, which would then have to be further investigated. This was the mother of one of the assailants calling with all of the information that she had. Obviously, that vehicle came back registered to the mother. Those weapons, we are going to soon learn. She said that they were taken from the home. She believes her son took them. Once law enforcement is able to do the proper testing, they will be able to verify that those weapons do match the mother's. But more importantly, I think that what we're going to learn in further investigation is that these two came together. They probably knew each other, but law enforcement will have to, again, corroborate all of this via, I think, Discord, gaming platforms, social media platforms, because, again, 17 and 18-year-olds are typically radicalized online. So they didn't grow up with this. They learned this behavior. They became indoctrinated into this behavior. So, but I think in terms of why law enforcement was able to be so forthcoming and so transparent is because they already had such concrete evidence yesterday.
When you talk about the public and tips coming in after an attack like this happens, you and I have discussed that again on countless different cases that have happened. Is the public as pivotal in piecing this all together as they would be in any other case?
I think you and I have talked about this so many times, and most of the incidents that you and I...
Leandro, shout out to you, my man. Shout out to you. Hope you're having a beautiful day wherever part of the world you are from, and you are very much welcome here. Good to see you, my man, and I hope you're having a beautiful day, afternoon, morning, whatever part of the world you are from. Salute to you, my man.
I've spoken about have come from random witnesses or people who may have been bystanders or regular observers. They weren't directly connected in most cases to the offender or the assailants. I do think that any witness testimony or witness information will be valuable. Again, it will just be supportive to the information already given by the mother. And then they're going to interview people that knew both of the offenders. They're going to interview their families. But I do think that I always encourage anyone that may have seen something or heard something to come forward and speak with law enforcement.
And as the investigation continues, again, those search warrants expected to be served today, more of them, as we could potentially get another news conference from San Diego police or other officials, again, piecing together all of this here. How does it change the situation? And this kind of goes into what you were just talking about. The fact that...
Okay, Leandro says, thank you, same to you. I live in the Midwest, but I am from Europe. Dang, bro. He says Europe from the Midwest. Damn, that's rough. LOL. Dude, that's what I'm saying, right? Like most, bro, like I've met a lot of British people in Sacramento. I've met a lot of British people in LA. Half American, half German. Okay. Germans as well, right? Germans. You know who I met in LA when I was down in Venice Beach? This guy, but he's a YouTuber. His name is German in Venice Beach. That's his YouTube channel. I saw him at Venice Beach. I was like, wait a minute, are you? Oh, you're always here. Of course you would be here. I'm walking around the beach. I'm like, oh man, it's German, in Venice Beach, the YouTuber. And, lo and behold, we chopped it up, talked for a bit, and he told me that, yeah, there's a lot of Germans that, that's the thing, right? There's a lot of Europeans that come to America, but usually in New York or, a coastal state, right? But the Midwest, man, that's a little bit different, but yeah, man, shout out to you, man. Germany to the Midwest. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Mark Haney says half American, half German. Nice. So that means you storm your own oh my God. Oh man. Well, it's all right. It's okay to make jokes about certain people of certain origins. Just you know what I mean. That would not go well if you made like some sort of like I don't know a joke about another ethnic group. But yeah, that hits a little bit easier when we're talking about the Germans. And here's the thing, right? Germans are like I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just a natural a natural discussion, disgust, a natural disgust that they have from Nazi Germany, but they're kind of ashamed of that, or maybe it's just the fact that they were indoctrinated like that through their schools. Okay, I'll give you an example, right? When I was 15 years old, I went with my mom and dad to Nuremberg, Germany. We went to the same area where the German painter made his speech, right? It was like this little stadium area or whatever, and it's kind of like a historical site. So I go there, and guess what I started doing, right? Guess what I started doing when I was at that Nuremberg building? Guess what I was doing? I was doing the unthinkable, okay? And I don't even want to say it because if I say it, then it's going to suggest, other things, and that could get me canceled. But yeah, I was doing the salute. So while I was doing the salute, guess who comes up to me? Right? The 15-year-old version of me, guess who comes up to me? This big German cop, okay, who looks like Alexander Gustafsson, okay? 6'5", tall German cop comes up to me, says, "Hey, you can't be doing that. No, 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 you can't be doing that." I was, oh man, I was like, "No, I'm sorry, dude. Don't arrest me. I'm an American. Please, don't. I'm an American." And and so he kind of just started laughing, smirking away. I was like, okay, don't do this, okay? You cannot do this. This is very bad. I don't know why I'm making this cop sound like he's Middle Eastern, but I don't know. I'm not good at making a German accent. You know what I mean? Like, du hast mich du schwa, du hast mich du schwa, du hast du mich dir schwa. You know that song, right? Rammstein, the German heavy metal band, dude. That band is crazy, man. They got like all types of fires and flames coming out in their concerts. Tracks NYC Jewelry. Is that what you're calling me? You're calling me the Tracks NYC guy? Is that what you're saying, John? Rammstein. Yeah, Rammstein was hard, bro. I remember Method Man in How High, right? When he was trying to wake up Redman. He was blowing smoke at him, and then he put like a big speaker in Redman's ear, and he was playing that song. Du hast mich du schwa. He says, yes, Rammstein, which is based on Ramstein, Germany, the town which I live near. Oh, okay. So those dudes are from your hood. Hey, I wonder, man, if Rammstein still performs, man. You know what? Let me I'm gonna go see if they still perform real quick.
The suspected shooters there, teenagers, are deceased. How does that change the investigation? Obviously, we know detectives not able to question them, but again, they do have the mother who is a credible witness and has all of the information there as far as documents and things of that nature.
So in most of these cases, we know that suicide is prevalent. About 70% of people who take action like this are suicidal before the attack. And in 40% of the cases, they...
All right. Oh, they do. Okay. Because I'm looking at their website, not their website, but their YouTube page. And usually if you go to an artist's YouTube page, right, they'll tell you like, all right, they're going to be here on this day. Like with Mozzie, for example, I looked at Mozzie's YouTube page, or I was playing one of his songs while I was working out, and I saw that he was going to do a show, I believe, in Bakersfield in July 31st, I believe. So it usually tells you but they don't have any upcoming dates here, or at least maybe they don't put it on their website. But yeah.
They do die by suicide or suicide by police. So it's not rare that law enforcement does not have the opportunity to interview and debrief offenders in this case. But I do think having the mother and her cooperation is going to be vital. More importantly, like I said a few minutes ago, I think that because of the age, they live in this online world.
Oh, yeah, man. The mother's going to be singing. She's going to be singing and snitching. You know what I mean? Like, oh, my son did this. He was into that. He was reading Mein Kampf. He was reading all types of things. He was watching Nick Fuentes. Oh, boy. And then when they mention that, they're going to, like, blame this all on Nick Fuentes. Even though Nick Fuentes nowadays doesn't really have a big problem with, with Muslims per se, right? His problem is more towards them boys. But anyways, yeah. Leandro says, Rammstein has an American base, which I lived on. Oh, yes. Okay, that's why. That's why you're half German and American. Okay, that makes sense. Yes, Rammstein, yes. Whenever there is a Middle Eastern conflict that America is involved in, Rammstein is the base that they use to launch F-16s, F-22s, bomber planes where they're going to drop off paratroopers, stuff like that. So yes. Okay, Rammstein is an American base, which I lived on. My father is a war vet, and in 1993, they had a horrendous plane crash during an air show. by the Italian Air Force. Well, there you go. That's kind of the problem right there, right? Italians are probably great at making cars. I don't know about planes, but anyways, the band on purpose picked their name based on that controversy. Wow, that is interesting. I did not know that. So they named themselves Rammstein because of an air show accident done by the Italians. Not even the Americans, not even the German military. It was the Italians. Hey, that's not fair. Why you do this to me? Hey, you make the Italian look bad. Hey, you know, Italy is not good for Italy. We didn't even make the World Cup, and we are better at everybody at soccer. I cannot believe this. Yes, I cannot believe this. Italy is no longer in the World Cup. Oh, no. And we lose to the Bosnians. F the Muslim people. I'm joking, just joking. Obviously, I'm joking about that. I know that Italians don't hate the Muslims. Some of them do, though. Some of them do. Let's just be real, right? Mark Haney says, "Hey, dude, I'm nearly 2/3 of the Mein Kampf and one of the most interesting books or journals I have ever read." Wow. Okay. So, all right, man. You know what, man? That's good that you do that, right? Because over the years they've really, like, I don't know, man, it's not a book that's heavily available out there, right? I mean, if it is, you would kind of be in a closet about it. You wouldn't tell anybody that you're reading it, right? You would sort of treat it like 90s VHS rental porn, right? If you remember back in the VHS days when you rented movies, right? The Blockbuster days, or one of those rinky-dink rental places, you would have to go to like this, like screen door or whatever, or this curtain, around it, where you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how Mein Kampf is treated in that kind of way. Leandro says, you know how the Italians didn't qualify for the third time in a row. Now I give Argentini a hard time because of that. Oh yeah, he probably curses you out for reminding him of that. You know what I mean? Yeah, he probably definitely curses you out for that. Connor Siller, BJJ, he says, I was in Claremont when the shooting happened. I just saw hundreds of cops flying up the 15. The 15, you mean the 15 highway? Okay, gotcha. Leandro says, Connor. And then Connor says, Leandro, with the emoji of the arms up, like do a little flex one time. Yeah, but yeah, man, very sad, of course. You know what I mean?
World. And I think that is really going to open doors to pivotal information that we learn about them. Again, and also speaking to classmates, friends, or any associates that they had that they hang out with is going to be really crucial to the ongoing investigation.
He says, yeah, Connor and I know each other. He's an OG. Okay, well, there you go, man. There you go, right? Two Europeans in America, right? What couldn't get any better than that.
My last question for you, any maybe misinformation or misunderstanding that you think people out there have about an investigation like...
He says, Leandro is the OG of the OGs. Oh, yes, he is, man. Shout out to all you guys. You guys are all, the real OGs up in here, man.
This one.
All you guys make this chat and this channel possible. So thank you for all of you, man.
As the investigation moves forward, anything that maybe people don't fully realize or misunderstand?
Because we are hearing that it was related to a hate crime, and we've seen in media reporting that there was hate language, we can't jump to conclusions about what this is and what the true motive behind it is. In situations like this where you have a young pair at that, you usually have an instigator and a follower. So until we learn more about these two individuals that were involved, we really shouldn't prejudge. We should really be looking to law enforcement to give us any information that they can verify.
They said the shooter was trans. Is that confirmed? No. You know what it is? That's just internet language, right? They looked at the guy. He had long hair, right? You know how it is. A lot of California, dudes have long hair, right? Uriah had long hair. He had that look where he would have long hair and then he would braid it up, right? Brandon Allen has that same look, where he kind of looks, kind of gender ambiguous, right? An example of gender ambiguous. If you guys remember the band Hanson from back in the days, right? I remember a homie of mine told me And man, I never let up on him after he said this to me, even as adults. He said to me, "Yo, I had a crush on one of the Hanson girls until I found out he wasn't a girl." You know the band Hanson, right? For those of you old heads out there from the TRL Carson Daly era of MTV, you guys know who Hanson is, right? That's like some early late 90s, early 2000s, late 90s tip right there. He said that I had a crush on one of the Hansons until I found out that it wasn't a girl. You know, so the same thing that's going on right here. That's where all of that trans stuff is coming from. They are saying that because he looks gender ambiguous. So that's what it is, right? I don't think he was a trans. I wouldn't put too much into it. And I think there was a shooting that involved the trans, right, in the Charlie Kirk situation. But he wasn't even the trans. He had a lover that was, I can't even believe I'm saying that, right? But that is the world that we are living in today.
Verify is credible.
Connor Siller BJJ says, I had the opposite happen when I was in love with Amanda. Oh my God. Amanda. I had the opposite happen when I was in love with Amanda and I found out she's a woman. Dude. No Diddy on that. No Diddy on that, Connor. You know, I like to think the best of you, so I hope that you are joking, and I know that you are, but that was absolutely funny. It like, you know, I don't normally laugh that hard on my streams, right? Yo, Connor made me laugh. I can't believe this, yo. It's not that I like to be all hard all the time or this and that. It's just that, you know, sometimes I just don't have a reason to laugh, right? Like, yo, you really made me get out of my character on that one. Like, you really made me jump out of my body on that one, bro. He said the opposite happened when I was in love with Amanda Nunes until I found out she's a woman. I thought you were going to say, you know, this happened to me with Amanda Nunes until I found out she had a girlfriend, and then I was like, you know what, she's off limits, but okay, to each its own.
But I also think it's really important to note that, again, statistically, we know that attacks on houses of worship are not common. They do happen, and when they do, they're serious. But I don't think that people should be fearful to go to their homes of worship because of something like this. I think we need to come together.
Hey, bro, thank you for that, man. Listen, you know, sometimes, you know what, we all need a bit of a good laughter in the world today, right? We need a good laughter when tragedy like this happens, and, you know, thank you for that, man. You know, I really needed that, you know, in all seriousness. You know what I mean? I really needed that, Connor, and yeah, you made me crack up on that one. Leandro says, bro, you should see our chats in Galerno's. Connor is funny. Yeah, I've been there. I've seen him there a few times, bro. You know, I was there last night, or I think it was today, where he did a 5-hour stream. I was there. Yeah, I was there for that one. He says, if we don't laugh, we will cry. There you go, right? And you know, obviously, yeah, the last thing I'd want to do is cry in on stream. You know what I mean? Because then if I cry, look, I laughing on stream is one thing. You know what I mean? Showing those types of emotions, but then crying is another thing. Then, you know, people are going to use this as some sort of like tool against me in any kind of, oh, look at this guy, he's crying, right? I could be crying about, I don't know, you know, an animal that I saw get ran over or whatever, right? And they were just, oh, look at this guy, he's a bitch for crying at such and such. Connor Siller BJJ says, haha, Gilly's chats are peak comedy. Facts, man. And he gets at them too, you know, especially the trolls. So that's, yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. You know, his chats are definitely legendary.
And just be, again, diligent and say something. If you see something.
Did you see Wankers won the Premier League? Oh, God, man. Yeah, all the Arsenal fans. You know, the Arsenal fans are one of the most cringy fans in the world of football, right? The most cringy fans ever. And for them to win it, I think this hurts more than seeing Khamzat lose to Sean Strickland. In all honesty, this hurts more than Sean Strickland. But yeah. He says, I gotta admit, I always laugh when I see DC cry. See, that's exactly what I don't want. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tell you what, man. I'll tell you one instance where I cried that was, out of the ordinary. It was actually MMA related. When Leon Edwards beat Kamaru Usman, he says, "You guys doubted me. Look at me now." Bro, I cried. I'm not sure if I necessarily cried for Leon Edwards, but I cried for that moment because you got to remember in context, Leon Edwards was getting clowned throughout that whole process. He got beat up by Masvidal, okay, in his own event, which Masvidal knocked out also Darren Till in that, right? So he gets beat up in his own country and his own fight event. He gets prevented from getting a title shot, and then he finally wins it, right? I cried right there, but you'll never see a clip of that because I don't think I was streaming full time at that time. So yeah, you'll never see that. He says, yeah, Arsenal hasn't won in forever, right? Victory says, what do you think of Khamzat versus Danis? What a terrible matchup. I think Dylan Danis is just trying to run up a bag. He knows that he's not going to win this. Also, I think, you know what? If you're going to run up a bag, why not do it in a way where, you know what? This is great. It's great training for me to, sort of get better at wrestling. And, and then you get to do it with a big name. You get to do it in front of people to kind of get you ready for an MMA fight. That is, if that's what he wants to do. But I'm sure, he's going to get a bag for this one. Victory says the videos they made of Leon in the corner getting yelled at by his coach, then here goes out of nowhere, lands a head kick. Bro, that, like, stuff like that makes me cry, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying, dude, don't get it twisted. It's not like these types of events that happened here, at the San Diego, shooting, doesn't like affect me in any kind. Of course it does, right? I'm a Muslim by the end of the day. These are my fellow Muslim brothers and sisters, so of course I'm going to feel some kind of way, right? But to cry about it, I mean, you'll never know if I'm going to cry about it in, in person or not, but I'll never do it in public. But for sure, definitely I cried for the Leon Edwards fight. HH says, that's awful. What's awful? Explain.
Something, say something. I always say that.
He says, I get why Danis took it, but I don't understand why RAF made it, though. Danis can't wrestle. He got whooped by Colby. Because he's still a name, right? RAF is not high school wrestling. It's not NCAA wrestling. It's not Olympic wrestling, right? It's not about competitive architecture. For example, if you want to see Sadulayev versus Kyle Snyder, well, you're going to have to wait for Sadulayev and Kyle Snyder to go beat up 4 other dudes, and then in the 4th day of the Olympics or whatever, ongoing days they have within that tournament, then you get to see them for the gold medal match. Right? That's not what RAF is. RAF is, let's get straight to the point, match up this guy versus that guy because these guys have a name, right? And also remember, the RAF was owned by Hulk Hogan and is now ran by Eric Bischoff, right? So there's an entertainment element to it. Of course, it's a combat sports league, but there's an entertainment component to it due to the fact that it is ran by Eric Bischoff. Victory says, you're right. They're going in the entertainment direction, which is good. I think Larry Wheels is going to get a match against Bradley Martin. Okay, you know what? I could get down with that. Obviously, these are not Olympic level guys. Bradley Martin has wrestled himself, so that's good. Larry Wheels is not a combat athlete in any kind of way. Once again, he's just a social media guy, that's going to attract a lot of attention for this one. That's just what it is, right? So that's what they do. But you'll never see Bradley Martin or Larry Wheels in a local jiu-jitsu tournament or in a local, high school gymnasium for like masters division of like wrestling. We had something like that in Union, New Jersey one time, right? Where we had a bunch of alumni, right? Older guys, right? Guys that can't even fit into their singlets anymore, right? You know what I mean? Which is, kind of weird. Like they'd show up there like dudes with their bellies out to here. And then you see like old pictures of them plastered up as they're walking out. They were like all cut up when they were kids. Yeah, man, like one of them type of things, right? You'll never see even Bradley Martin and Larry Wheels compete in that because obviously they would have to have been alumni of a certain school to do that. John Dong says, "Do you watch UFC BJJ?" Yes, I dabble on it once in a while in there. Yeah, sure. Mike Musumeci, stuff like that. I think this is all brilliant that they got going on, right? I think it's I think it's great. All these different compository sports, these single compository sports of MMA being implemented into into like their UFC Fight Pass situation going on. I think that's good. I'm all for it.
But I think it's so true. If you encounter someone that just gives you an uneasy feeling, or someone they're acting not how they typically act, there's no harm in calling for help or talking to law enforcement and just giving someone notice that someone's behavior is making you feel a little uneasy.
It's very true. See something, say something. You hear it all the time, but it is a good piece of advice there. Julian Snyder, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here, helping to break down a horrible, tragic situation as we wait to learn more. Anything we missed about any of this that you want to make sure to mention here before I let you go?
I think it's important to note also that across the country, we're going to see increased law enforcement presence, most likely. I know NYPD has already stepped up at houses of worship. This is a holy week for the Islamic community. So if you are someone who goes to your house of worship and you do see an extra law enforcement presence, that is there for your safety and your protection. That shouldn't be alarming. That should make you feel genuinely grateful that law enforcement is coming out there and trying to allow you to go to your home of worship and feel safe.
Yeah, we heard from several different big cities and even smaller cities that they're increasing some of that security here just as a precaution, even if they didn't receive any kind of specific threat. Julian Snyder, thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to join us. We definitely appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, so we've seen, all right, so check this out, right? We just seen the Fox News version of that coverage for the Mosque San Diego shooting, right? Now let's take a look at the, how do I say this, right? The liberal side of it. Yeah, let's check out the liberal side of this particular argument, if we can, please. Let's check this out right here. I believe this is from, what is this channel? Democracy Now!, right? So obviously Democracy Now! Is more of a left-wing channel. We just got to watch the left-wing version of that. So let's check this out right here. Okay, let's see here.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In California, 2 teenage gunmen fatally shot 3 people on Monday at the Islamic Center of San Diego, the largest mosque in San Diego County. Among the dead was a security guard, now identified as Amin Abdullah, a father of 8, who police say played a pivotal role in saving lives, particularly children's lives. The suspects, aged 17 and 19, were found dead from apparent self-inflicted gunshot wounds in a car near the scene. Police are investigating the attack as a hate crime. Law enforcement officials told CNN hate speech was scrawled on one of the weapons. A suicide note that contained writings about racial pride was also found, according to officials. CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, noted the attack comes as anti-Muslim bias complaints reach their highest level on record, with 8,683 complaints filed nationwide. This is Taha Hussein, the Imam and Director of the Islamic Center of San Diego.
My community is mourning. This is something that we have never expected to take place. But at the same time, the religious intolerance and the hate, unfortunately, that exists in our nation is unprecedented. All of us, we are responsible for spreading the culture of tolerance, the culture of love. All of us, we are responsible from whatever position we have as parents, as media people, as elected officials, as law enforcement, as religious leaders. All of us, we can do something to protect our nation, to protect our society. And please, I have one request to the media. Stop sharing the picture of the victims. Let the families mourn. Let them pray. As we do always at the Islamic Center of San Diego. It's a house of worship. It's not a battlefield. Come on. People come to the mosque to pray, to socialize, to celebrate, to enjoy their time together. Muslims and non-Muslims alike, everyone have been always welcomed. Our doors are always welcomed. We never ask people when they show up at the door of the Islamic Center, we never ask them whether you are a Muslim or not, who are you? Because everyone is welcome. So let's do our best to spread this culture of love and tolerance and sympathy for the sake of this nation, for the sake of the future generation.
That was Taha Hussein, the Imam and Director of the Islamic Center of San Diego, attacked on Monday. Police said they'd begun a search for the...
Yeah, man, W for the Imam of San Diego on that one, man. Yeah, he's right. Look, I think we underestimate the impact that we have, right, as media people and you know, as anybody who has any type of following towards the type of rhetoric that we put out there, right? So yeah, it's very tragic, you know, very tragic to every degree.
The two teenage gunmen 2 hours before the attack, after the mother of one of the shooters called police. This is San Diego Police Chief Scott Wall.
She believed her son was suicidal, and she began to share information that several of her weapons were missing. Her vehicle was missing, in addition to her son. She also said that her son was with a companion, and that they were dressed in camo, and that is not consistent with what we would typically see from somebody that is suicidal.
That's the San Diego Police Chief. We're joined now by Linda.
Yeah, so the mom obviously thought there was some sort of like suicidal tendencies going on. No disrespect to the band name Suicidal Tendencies, but yeah, apparently in the assessment of the police officer, it seemed that there was no indication of that. Wearing camo is just an example of, you know what, I'm not suicidal. I'm here to cause harm. It's suicidal in a way, but suicidal in a sense where they know they were going to get unalived through police shootings. So, you know,
Yes,
that, like they say, I think it's classified as a suicide by police shooting or something like that.
Soor, Palestinian-American Muslim organizer, friend of the Imam at the Islamic Center of San Diego, author of We Are Not Here to Be Bystanders, and co-founder of Empower Action Fund. Linda, thanks so much for joining us again, but under these incredibly sad circumstances. The guard has just been named who was killed by the gunmen themselves apparently dead of self-inflicted wounds. Can you talk about what you heard yesterday and your reaction as it was unfolding? You're a friend of the Imam.
I immediately saw a tweet on X that said that there was a shooting at the Islamic Center of San Diego, and I immediately texted Imam Taha Hussein, who's an old friend of mine, and I said, "Are you okay?" And he immediately called me back and said that we are in a lockdown right now. There's been an active shooting. At that moment, he had not known about all the fatalities, but they did know about Brother Amin Abdullah, who was the armed security guard of the mosque and a father of 8 and a wonderful, incredible human being that I also had the honor and privilege of meeting myself. There are also 2 other adult males that were also killed in the shooting. One of them is Brother Mansour, also known as Abu Al-Izz. He is an elder, a caretaker of the mosque. Also,
Okay, well, that makes sense that she did run across Amin Abdullah, considering that what Linda Sarhour does is she does a lot of talks with many many Islamic centers across the United States. She's came up here to Sacramento before, so it's only standard that she was going to go down to San Diego. He says, I never really watched it, John. Seems kind of gay. Is it good? You know what? The UFC BJJ, it is good if you have a niche interest towards it.
Was running the Islamic bookstore at the mosque, and just a beloved kind of uncle in the community. Another one is Brother Nadid. Brother Nadid is a neighbor of the mosque, a congregant, someone who is heavily involved in the mosque itself. It's just a very devastating experience. There was also over about 200 kids in a pre-K to 3rd grade Islamic school that is a part of the Islamic Center of San Diego who are also on lockdown, hiding under, hiding under desks and closets. And if it wasn't for Brother Amin Abdullah and these brothers that came out to put their bodies on the line, we could have had many more fatalities, and many of them could have been small children in this country. So even though the children are safe, thank God, they are forever going to live with this trauma of knowing that their mosque was attacked because they were Muslims.
I was watching as parents wept also, talking about how Amin had saved their children, that the kids, the first thing they look forward to going to school in the morning is seeing him there.
That's right. That's who he was, and this was his job. As a matter of fact, a few days before this.
Woke No Quoke says she looks like Strickland. You know what, man? There is, I can see that resemblance, right? But you also have to understand, right? Palestinians are, they are genetically white. Okay. Yeah, they're genetically white. Most Arabs are also genetically white, but them in particular with Northern European ancestry that comes from the Phoenicians, right? Palestinians have Phoenician blood behind them, just as the Lebanese, right? That's why the Lebanese look very Northern European, right? As opposed to the rest of the Arab world, there tends to be a little bit more of a Mediterranean, persuasion in their DNA. But yeah, I that's the reason why. He says, you look Syrian or Libyan. Well, it's funny you said that. I was born in Libya. So, there you go, right? Yeah, I was born in Libya. So, I am definitely of a North African Berber Arab descent genetically. So, and then obviously the other side of me is, I'm half Asian on the other side, but you've seen which side of that genetics overly dominates me. You know what I mean? Like, the only thing Asian about me is probably my street affiliate. But anyways, let's not get into that anyways. Yes.
Horrific shooting. He had made a post.
All right, guys. Here's the thing, you guys. This is all wrong. Everything about this is wrong. Okay, maybe this is not a good idea to joke about this, but all right. Yes, I see what you're saying with that resemblance, though.
on social media, on Facebook, and said something like, a lot of people look for fame, they look for financial stability, they look kind of for the worldly things. But for him, he just wanted to be a good Muslim, and he wanted to meet his Lord as pure as he was when he was a baby. And that is his last message that people saw on social media. Imam Taha, also the director of the Islamic Center, who was in the building when this happened, he was on the second floor, is an incredible ally. He's someone who is very well known in the immigrant rights movement, in the San Diego economic justice movement. He's often at many rallies. This is a mosque that has opened its doors to the community. They literally have open mosque day, where anyone in the community can show up to the mosque, and they are opened. They are welcomed with open arms. They have film screenings. They do like.
Here's the thing, you guys. Kamzat Shamayev. Kamzat, you're a damn Chechnyan whore. Damn Kamzat. Yo, stop it. Yo, I would have never. Yo, guys, listen. Of all the, I would have never imagined. Oh my God, man.
Community events. They do festivals. Like, this is the epitome of a mosque that shows our true values as Muslims, in community and in solidarity. So it's just devastating. And no house of worship should have to ever experience this.
You were with Imam Taha Hussein just a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Imam Taha is a national leader. He is part of many of the movement work that I do. He's someone that we go to as an Islamic scholar to help guide us through the social justice and work that we do. And we were in Dearborn just a few weeks ago. He was there as a mentor to many Muslim organizers in this country. And he's someone that I've spoken on many panels with. We do the Muslim Student Association conference in California. Just someone who's always at the right place at the right time, and very encouraging, and of women leadership in our community, of youth leadership in our community. And so it's just devastating to see that his mosque was targeted as someone who has poured so much into our community and movements.
Can you talk about what you understand the mom of one of the alleged shooters? Kane Clark was, I believe, 17. He was with Caleb Vasquez. These two now dead teenagers have been identified. How the mom got in touch with the police hours before.
Yo, I'll never unsee it. Daniel Hamid, he says, Kyrie, it's good to still active on social media. I think Daniel Hamid, I think what he means to say is that Kyrie, it's good that you are still active on social media. I think that is what you mean, man. A shout out to you, Daniel Hamid. I'm very happy that you are here, man. You know what I mean? The legend Daniel. Yeah, man. Wow, man. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, this is a very sad day, man. I don't know if you heard about the the shooting that happened in San Diego, but it's a very sad day, man. But inshallah, as Muslims, how we get down with this. We believe that this life is temporary, and as temporary as this life is, we know that those people are going to heaven as a result of this. So yes, and then and then we're over here making fun of Linda Sohor, saying that she resembles Sean Strickland. I'm gonna show her again, and yeah, you'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah, man, Daniel Hamid, man, I'm very happy to see you here. Believe it or not, I know that we've had our our banter in the past before, but I'm glad that you are here, man. I really am. Just like I'm glad that a lot of you guys are here. So, excuse me, I'm having a little bit of a cold here. All right, let's get back to Sean Strickland's long lost sister. Not this one.
I think she had a cache of weapons, but she saw her guns gone and her car gone, and her kid was dressed in camo with the ammo. And as the police chief said,
Victory says, you are a big part of this channel's origin story, Daniel. Yes, he is. Yes, he is, man. Yo, shout out to Daniel, man. You are, man.
Even though he had left a suicide note, that is highly suspect when they're putting on camo, obviously.
I mean, we can't deny.
Here's the thing, you guys. You can't deny that he had a camo with an ammo and he was absolutely radicalized, and it's not the right thing, damn it. It's not the right thing. It's not what we stand for in America. That's not what we do. He says, what's happening to democracy now? Apparently people in the chat were saying that she looks like Sean Strickland. So yeah, let me know if you guys think the same way. Here's the thing, you guys.
Amy, that there's been increased political rhetoric against Muslims in this country, and the ways in which Muslims are treated.
And you know what? Here's the thing, you guys. I'm a little bit to blame for that. I know that me and Kamzat Shemai have had our thing going on, but I got to tell you, I love the Muslims. I love all my Muslim fans. And Shemaev, man, you're a good Chechnyan whore, yeah? You know, but here's the thing, you guys.
Treated even after this horrific shooting, right-wing MAGA accounts, some of them verified, some of them high-profile, have begun conspiracy theories or have actually blamed the mosque itself for their own shooting that happened there. It is absolutely horrific to see the ways in which elected officials, anywhere from Randy Fine to the members of Congress who have started this, what they call the Sharia-free caucus.
Here's the thing, you guys. Randy Fines, you're a whore. You're a whore like Shemaev. Shemaev's a Chechnyan whore. You're a Democrat whore. You're a MAGA whore. You're all whores, yeah.
People are not held accountable for their anti-Muslim hate. Anti-Muslim hate is one of the few types of bigotry in this country that is acceptable. You don't lose your job. There's no consequences for it. And here comes a 17-year-old who is probably brought into all this propaganda. He's wrote a suicide note. The officials are saying that there was hate rhetoric scrolled on the web.
Yes, woke no cloak. Yes, I'm crying tears of joy. Yes, hijab and teep. Oh my God. Hijab and teep. He says, D-Man, is that Strickland? Yo, that's what everybody keeps saying. Oh, I can't believe this. Yo, I think this chat just literally created, you know, a whole meme of Linda Sarhour as Sean Strickland's long-lost Palestinian sister. Here's the thing, you guys.
Weapons, which also tells me how long were your guns missing? How long did it take him to scroll? You know.
Well, here's the thing, you guys. I know a thing or two about guns. I pop them all the time, and I just don't understand what's going on here. I don't understand why you couldn't lock up your gun. You let your kid walk around with that gun. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're a stupid parent, just like my dad was a stupid parent.
Full, rhetoric on guns. Also, how is the mother storing her guns? You know, did you just leave them around?
Oh my God, there it is. How is the mother storing her guns? And there it is. The Strickland sister just literally mentioned that right there. Hey, you guys are about to make a world meme with Sean Strickland and Linda Sarhour, right? Look, I've known about Linda Sarhour for a long time. Obviously, she's a known public figure in El-Kheer, right? The Council of American Islamic Relations. And I've known about Sean Strickland for a long time, but never did I put them together as like, you know, as at the same time in my brain and put it together. Man, listen, W on the chat, man. W for you guys on the chat. D-Man says Strickland is Palestinian. Yo, we just started something here. I can't believe this. Here's the thing, you guys.
Was there no key? Was there no way for this to be protected so that your child does not go out and kill innocent people at a mosque? So there's something very, strange that's happening here. But I will say this about the 17-year-old and also a 19-year-old. I'm sad, Amy, for them. I really am sad. They're too young for this type of hate. And the fact that it drove them to the point where they went to a mosque and they shot innocent people and could have shot children. I mean, the fact that there's an Islamic school, if it wasn't for Brother Amin and the brothers that interfered, we literally could have had dozens of children who would have been literally shot and killed. And the thing is, we've seen this before. We saw it in Sandy Hook. We saw it in Uvalde. And so for me, I'm just like, it's an issue around, let's end this anti-Muslim hate. Let's make sure that there are consequences for people who propagate this hate, for media outlets who propagate this hate. And also, let's get some sensible gun reform. How did this mother get were they registered guns? How was she storing them at home? How did your son wear where did your son get cameo from? Like wearing, I mean, the whole thing just seems like it just doesn't make sense.
During a televised news conference on Monday, a woman disrupted the news conference just as San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria was beginning to speak. She accused him of emboldening what she called Zionist propaganda.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, so you guys seen this one, right? Where that lady went after, he says, where did he get the camel? I mean, you know what? They live in San Diego, right? And San Diego is a military town. Now, we don't know what kind of camo he had. We don't know if he had like a Marine Corps camo or any kind of way. Here's the thing with Marine Corps camos, right? If you look inside them, you'll see the eagle, globe, and anchor inside the digital camouflage print, right? Now, if he doesn't have that, then he obviously did not get it from, you know, a real service member that is in San Diego. Because remember, San Diego's a military town, bro. You got Camp Pendleton over there. You got U.S. Coast Guard over there. You got the Navy. I think that's about it. Maybe the Army as well over there, but mostly Marines, Navy. It's a Marine Navy town majority, right? She said he had cameo, not camo. Yeah, I think a little bit of a typo error in her accent, right? Yeah, you know, but yeah, it's camo. Now, where did he get the camo? Obviously, look, you could buy camo at a military store. You would imagine there's a lot of camos that you can buy at a military store, right? Like old school camos from, you know, the Vietnam days. I remember I went to a military store one time. They had British military camos, right, which I thought was pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, I got to go get one of these, right? So yeah, man, camos are not that hard to get. Here's the thing, though, right? In the Philippines, there was a point where wearing camouflage was actually illegal in the Philippines, and guess why? Guess why it's illegal? Because of the Muslim rebels that were fighting the government, right? They would wear camouflage and shoot up a place, shoot up government employees, government officials, soldiers, Filipino troops. He says British camel, bruv, innit? Yeah, man. You know what? In fact, yo, when I wore those British camouflage, I don't know why, something got into me where I was like, I need to play some UK drill rap songs and you know, and just say bruv, and you know, and then maybe have you know, some matching, you know, tracksuits underneath it. You know what I mean? Like yo, Linda Sorwar looks like Sean Strickland. Oh my goodness, bro. We gotta listen. I think I'm gonna start a meme on that on you know, but I don't know, man. You know, hopefully Linda doesn't, you know, sue me for doing that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, these care people, they're a little bit tricky, but yeah. You know, you could tell the mayor was absolutely distraught by this, right? Like, I could tell he was disturbed by this. And at the same time, I think there's a little bit of a sense of remorse into him. Because even though he didn't order anyone to go and do this, I think that he understands there is a bit of a responsibility on his part.
Just like you did tonight. You're the science propaganda. And you'll keep doing it as long as it finds it.
So after that, the mayor began speaking, but she referred to him as Todd, which was his first name. Linda Sarsour, I don't know if you could make out what she was saying, but if you could respond.
She was saying basically to him that this is...
Here's the thing, you guys. This is what he was trying to say to her. You're a San Diego whore. That's what you are. And you know what? You're not a man. You're not a man. You don't know anything about it. You're not about that life. You're an idiot. You need to get out of here. That's what it is, guys. And here's the thing, you guys.
That you're part of the problem. That this is because you've emboldened this.
Well, here's the thing, you guys. You've emboldened this whole entire thing. You're the problem. You are the problem. And you know what? I would say AIPAC is the problem as well.
Hateful rhetoric, like she was basically holding him accountable. Mayor Todd, in the course of genocide, has condemned Palestinian organizers. He condemned Palestinian students. He would never show up to any events led by Palestinian American or Muslims that were related to the genocide in Gaza. And he continued to vilify folks that organized around the genocide. And he is someone who has aligned himself with right-wing Zionists and others. So I think, again, who you ally with as a leader of a city, right, like San Diego, tells me where you stand. If you're going to be willing to stand with people who are condemned.
Here's the thing, you guys. I got a long-lost sister because my dad was doing some really naughty things with a bunch of whores that he shouldn't be dealing with. So Sean Strickland. Oh, my God, bro. Yo. Oh, my God. Here's the thing, you guys.
Of vilifying, dehumanizing people who are standing up for justice for the Palestinian people, then you're
okay. Look, I want to make it very clear, right? I'm obviously not making fun of the situation, but it is just uncanny that you guys brought to my attention. She looks like Sean Strickland. Okay, so that's what I'm making fun of Linda more than anything, not what she's saying. Not, or anything like that. Tyler Betts, well, all right, that's your opinion. To each its own. You know what I mean? But all right. Then I guess you must think Sean Strickland is a baddie as well. Because I tell you what, after what the chat has told me today, I don't know if I think that way, Tyler, but, to each its own, right? I think the chat just kind of, really jaded me out of that. But yeah. Here's the thing, you guys.
We're part of the larger problem that we have here, which is reaffirming anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab hate. You know this, Amy, in this country. People don't know the difference between a Muslim, Arab, or a Palestinian. And that's the problem here. And so all these things are conflated. In the past, this mosque has been targeted during genocide by right-wing media.
Tyler Betts, you're saying OF. What exactly is that in reference to? Buzz year. Jawline. Okay, guys, look, let's be nice, okay? It's a Muslim sister by the end of the day. Yes, she's a liberal Muslim sister, right? Not exactly my type of political cup of tea. She's still a Muslim by the end of the day. Let's be, kind of respectful, okay? Yes, she looks like Strickland. We can laugh at that, but Buzz Lightyear jawline? Come on now. He says, getting a better look at her now. All right.
There was a New York Post article that just literally got published yesterday after a horrific shooting that basically said the shooting that happened at an Islamic center with a history of controversy. Like they're instead of reporting the news, they're telling us that there's a controversial mosque here. What does that have to do with what is happening to these people?
The far-right political activist, Trump ally Laura Loomer.
Here's the thing, you guys. I'm not with all of this. This is not good. Now, I know I threatened to shoot Kamzat, but I was just joking, guys. I was just trying to sell you guys a fight. That's all I was trying to do. But it doesn't mean that I approve of anyone going out there shooting anyone.
Posted a message on X on Monday reading, the mosque that was, quote unquote, supposedly shot.
Oh, yeah. Look at this idiot right here. Look at this idiot, Laura Loomer over here. Look at this idiot, Laura Loomer over here. Let's see what she got to say right here.
Up today. Just remember, the people who attend this mosque want us all to be killed. We will be told they are such amazing people. I'm not advocating for violence. I condemn violence. I'm showing you how evil this mosque is and always has been. It should be raided by ICE and the FBI, she tweeted. In a follow-up tweet, Laura Loomer called for the DHS to, quote, deport every Muslim in America back to the Middle East, unquote. Your response, Linda.
And this is exactly what's across the entire internet. That's it. This is the...
Here's the thing, you guys. Laura Loomer is an absolute idiot. She's dumb. She doesn't represent America. She doesn't represent my kind of America, damn it. That's not what it's about to be an American. That's not what it means to be an American, damn it.
Conspiracy theories blaming us for the tragic and horrific shooting that has happened at this mosque. And this is the kind of rhetoric that's acceptable. No one else, Amy, would be able to say something like Laura Loomer about any other religious community. Again, for us, it's acceptable. Her post won't get taken down. There will be no consequences for a Laura Loomer. But here we have 3 adult men, beloved in their community, in an incredible mosque where their neighbors love them. There are people that have come out and spoken about them, pastors, rabbis, those that have visited this mosque and know that this mosque is a community center. It's a beloved place. I've been there so many times, Amy. It's so incredible. It's one of the most diverse mosques in all of America, from the African continent, from South Asia, from the Arab world, from converts in the United States of America to Latino Muslims. They have Spanish-speaking programs.
Oh, Latino. She had to say it like that. Oh, Latino. Latino. Latino heat.
I mean, it's just an incredibly beautiful place. They welcome the formerly incarcerated. This is the kind of people that they are. Imam Taha is one of
the formerly incarcerated. So in other words, Muslim brothers that have came out of prison, which I think is, sort of important. But yeah.
The most incredible leaders.
Latino heat. Yeah, she said it like Latino. She didn't say it like Latino or Latin, or like she said Latino, like like with a Spanish emphasis to it, kind of like when you are at a Mexican themed boxing event, right? You notice that the announcers, they'll go something like, and now introducing Alberto Del Rio. They'll super emphasize the R and all of that. She said it like a true liberal. That's what I'm saying. Because she is. She is a liberal. El-Kheer is literally our left wing side of the Muslim community, right? We don't really have a right wing. I mean, there are people that are MAGA, Muslim people. And then there's the Salafi community, the Salafi Orthodox community that, people like Khabib and Islam Makhachev belong to, that type of thing. But yeah.
We have in this country, and it's just despicable that we allow this kind of rhetoric, especially after a horrific shooting.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube.
All right. So, yeah, thanks to that video, we have... Oops, sorry about that. Is this going on right now? Okay, sorry about that. All right, so yeah, because of this video, obviously we have now unlocked Palestinian Sean Strickland, right? Can you believe that, right? Can you believe there is such a thing? Can you believe it, guys? Can you believe it? Here's the thing, you guys. She's not my sister, okay? I don't know what my dad was doing on the side, but he's a piece of shit. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. All right, guys. So obviously, very tragic of what's going on right now. You know what I mean? I wish the best for the family that is going through this right now. I wish the best for everybody around the world. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are healthy, and I hope you guys stay safe. Look, this is America, right? We have our Second Amendment rights. Learn to shoot a gun. Learn how to operate it in a safe manner, right? Weapon safety, tactical training, and overall learning how to clear your rooms when you are at your house, right? Because you never know when these things happen. Do drills, active shooter drills, things of that nature. This is what you have to do to protect yourself now when you are in the United States and anywhere else in the world. But with that in mind, guys, listen. That is all that I have for this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next one. This has been a very fun chat. Thank you to everyone that has pulled up in the chat. I really appreciate you. I appreciate everybody that has come in here. And I hope you guys have
a wonderful rest of the week. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have Alexander Usyk and Rico Verhoeven this weekend. You know, fun times ahead. I don't know if I'll cover that one live, but I will be doing a preview show to that one leading up to it, whether, you know, days prior or the day of. But either way, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one, inshallah. And God bless to everybody around the world, and prayers to all the families and the people that were affected by the San Diego shooting.